Greetings, boys and girls. This is Furry from Andrew H, uploading yet another Furrian video. Why am I talking like a sports announcer? Furry from Andrew H uploads another Furrian video. Somebody clicks like, the crowd goes wild. Anyway, tonight's topic is furry and Therianthropy. And I, like I imagine a lot of people listening to this, are Therian Furrs. Which essentially means that you're a furry and a Furrian. Furrian by nature, furry by choice. So yeah. Now, there are actually Furrians out there who really hate furry. Of course, there are furries out there who really hate Furrians, but yeah. There are Furrians out there who really hate furry. Now, I can kind of understand why, because people like this tend to be the ones that are being compared to furry all the time, and they get really sick of it. But here's the thing. Just explain it. If you're talking to someone who's reasonable, just explain the differences between furry and furry. Sorry, Furrians and furry. Just explain the differences. If you're talking to a reasonable person, then cool, you may even be interested. If you're talking to a troll or an idiot, then really, you don't need their opinion. You don't need their input. These people are morons. Right. But I've never understood why there are kin out there who really hate furry. I mean, think about it, right? There is an entire community out there that the general consensus is they're people who really fucking love anthropomorphic characters. You know, anthropomorphic. People that are part animals. Or animals that are part people. You know, not that humans and animals are humans. Not that humans aren't animals, but that's the way the English language works. I'm afraid we try and separate ourselves from the animal species grammar as much as possible. Now, I'm sure everybody here, regardless of what your beliefs are, can agree on this. The furrian brain is essentially part human, part animal. Sometimes you feel more like your kin type. I'm going to say wolf because that's what I am. Sometimes I feel a little bit more wolfy than I do human. Sometimes I feel a little bit more human than I do wolfy. But the thing is, it is never 100% one or the other. It is always, even during mental shifts, it is never 100% one way or the other. Sometimes, you know, it goes one way, sometimes it goes the other way, and I'm repeating myself again. And I've always thought that if you put a physical form to a furrian's mind, if you gave a furrian's mind a physical form, it will be an anthro. Both human and animal. It will be an anthro. Because we're not 100% one or the other. And here's a little interesting thing for you, right? Something to think about. If you could choose between these three forms, what would you choose? Would you be a human? Now, here's the thing about the human. You can change whatever it looks like. You know, it doesn't have to look exactly like you. You can choose whatever it looks like. If you could choose your physical form, right, would you choose human? That you could change to whatever you want to make the ideal you. Would you choose your kin type, 100% animal? Or would you choose, once again, something that you can alter, more human, more animal, whichever way you wished? Would you choose the anthro? I choose the anthro. You get the best of both worlds. You get some of the worst of both worlds as well, but I think it's a good trade-off. I would personally choose the anthro, and this is not something I've just jumped on. This is something I've thought long and hard about. I mean, as much as I would love to be able to turn into a wolf or my kin type once in a while and run around and say woo fucking who, but in wolf language, which would be ow or something like that, then yeah, brilliant. But a lot of people, myself included, romanticize nature a great deal. A great deal. It is not a fucking nature is not a Disney movie. It is not pretty. You know, I used to say that nature is sometimes brutal, sometimes beautiful, but it always has an element of beauty. And I say this, I say, nature is sometimes incredibly beautiful and nature is sometimes incredibly brutal, but it is always freaking fascinating. I respect nature and know enough about nature to know that I wouldn't want to live in it. I would not want to be a wolf in the wild, because that is a hard fucking life. That is a real hard frigging life. I would not want to be that. You know, all you people who complain about the human life and how living in the wild would be a lot better, try it for a while. It is not easy. Okay? It is really not easy. So I wouldn't be human. I wouldn't be my kin type. I'd be in between. I'd have the best of both worlds. So yeah. And tell me that when you don't look. Oh, sorry. Tell me when you look at incredible artwork like Golden Wolves, for example. I know there are a lot that do artwork like hers, but when I think about this kind of Amphro artwork, I always think of Golden Wolf. I think she was the first one I found. Tell me you don't see a connection with you and that. Tell me that when you look at this incredible artwork, you don't think something along the lines of, wow, that is me. You know, if there was an actual genre of Furrian art, that's what it would be. That's it right there. And even though a lot of Golden Wolf's work, or this kind of genre in general, I don't think it has an actual name beyond Amphro, and Amphro can mean a number of things. But kind of the spiritual Amphro aspect, even though, as you all know, I'm the psychological believing type, I love it. I have not a connection, but that artwork kind of, it fits, it works, it's perfect. Even though it has some elements of shamanism to it and native symbolism and all that kind of good shit, it works. It works perfectly. That is kin. You took a kin's mind and you put it on a piece of paper. That is what it is. That is perfect. I love Amphro art. I love Golden Wool's work. Interestingly enough, actually, on a side note, I was originally kicked from Facebook because of this image above. Why? Why? Oh, because it has an unerect penis? Yeah. Aphrodite. Bunch of old school artwork that wouldn't get me kicked off. Anyway. That's bullshit, I'm sorry. Now, speaking of penises. There's people hate things because people hate things. Haters gonna hate, but the general opinion about why people would hate furry is because of the yiff. Now, while it contains a lot of weird shit, sometimes quite literally, hating furry because of the yiff aspect in it is kind of hating anime because of the hentai aspect. Anime is awesome. Don't hate it just because there's hentai in it. And I won't be lying. You know, you can say the same about furry. And I won't be lying if I said I never fapped to hentai or yiff. Now, in case you don't know, you could probably guess by the hentai. Hentai is porn based on anime, and yiff is porn based on furry. That's basically it. And people tend to hate. Well, the general consensus is people tend to hate furry because of the yiff, which I think is stupid. You know, you don't hate something because it has porn made out of it. Rule 34, dumbasses. If it exists, there's porn for it. You know? And a lot of the times, things are classed as porn when they're really not. They're just called autistic nude, because they're not people, think porn. But yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't fact furry porn. But once again, it comes back to the mind, how we identify ourselves. This is, let's take wolves for example, because once again, that is me. This is, let's say, an Amphro, a female Amphro wolf. Now, we as people are conditioned to find something that will be an ideal mate attractive. That's how it works. It's not the most romantic way of looking at it, but that's how it works, right? Now, you have a mind of both human and wolf, right? Well, you have a mind of both human and your kin type. In my case, it's the wolf. So why wouldn't I find that attractive? Huh? And here's the funny thing. Humans in general, no. You know, I've seen guys and a few girls go completely frigging gaga over certain celebrities. And I don't see it. They look like Barbie dolls to me. I don't see the attraction. And in the same realm, let me just clear this right now. I don't find actual wolves attractive in that way at all. Same with humans, okay? They both have their own beauty to them, but I can't see it in that way. And that's where furry comes into it. Furry is my mind. Furry is what I am probably conditioned to find as an ideal mate. It is both human and my kin type. And I think that's how it works. So I say screw you people who hate furry just because of the if. It's a stupid reason to hate something. Now, to go away from the furry aspect for a little while, this is something I'm going to talk about something I hit on in an old video of mine. I don't really agree with some of the things I say in it, if I remember correctly. Anymore. I think it's one of the few still up actually. I think it was called Therianthropy and Otherkin, or Furrians and Otherkin, the hard to believe ones. One of the hard to believe ones in that video were kin who said that their kin types had names. You know, when they were they usually tend to be the spiritual types. When they were reincarnated or something like that, their kins actually had a name. The soul that was in the animal had a name. But if that was the case, if wolves did indeed have names for each other, which they don't, once again, I keep using wolves. I know there are other kin types other than that, but that's me, so that's how I generally speak about it. If wolves had names for each other, which they don't, why the hell does it sound like a human name? Why does it sound like a human name? Now, why have I brought this up in a furry video? Well, generally because there are a lot of... Well, most furries give themselves an online name. And I understand why I give myself an online name. It's not Therianthropy H, it's Fowlin. Usually followed by Lunasvelen or Lunavalen or Lunasven. Fowlin, Lunasvelen is the general one, depending on how much room I have. But the Lunasvelen part is tacked on. It's not really a part of it. Well, Fowlin fits. Fowlin means little wolf. Now, there's a version of it that you can change that is spelled F-A-O-L-E-N, I believe. That means shield wolf. But my version is F-A-O-L-A-N, which means little wolf. And since I am kin, there is a little wolf in me. And even though my actual name is Andrew Hart, hence the Andrew H bit of my username, that's my name. That's my actual name. It doesn't say anything about me. That's just my name. That was what I was born with. That's what I was given when I was born. Alright? Whereas Fowlin does. Fowlin says something about me. And that's a part of the furry thing I really like. The idea that you could give yourself a name that really says something about you. It's in the same realm as why I think people who say they hate labels are idiots. Because by saying you hate labels, you're naming yourself a label hater, somebody who hates labels. Labels are useful. Imagine a library without labels. Okay? You wouldn't be able to find what the fuck you're looking for, right? And it works the same with people. That labels exist so you can find the type of person you'll probably get along with. And just like online names. That's how I see online names. That's why that's why for a while, until I found Fallon, it really took me ages. I would sit there on the screen of a profile creator or a game creator, and I would look at the screen and think, what the hell can I call myself? Until I found Fallon.